Hey, Deft here, and thanks for joining me for a video where I'm going to talk about updates to my Arkanoid game. I probably spent the last 24 hours or so just kind of updating it, adding features a little bit, and yeah, generally making it better. So the first thing you probably notice here is that I am looking at a slightly different screen from the previous video. If you looked at the previous video, um, and that's because a lot of the time I've spent updating this thing was just adding stages to it. So before there were just two stages, they're pretty boring. These might be boring too, but now there's five stages, and yeah, I think they're a bit more interesting. So I'm gonna try to talk through features while I'm playing the stages that are currently in game on the video, and talk to you a bit about what I would like to add to the game in future versions. So one thing that you might have noticed is that the ball doesn't immediately start moving when the game starts, which is something I've added. Now you press the space bar to get the ball to start moving. Um, there's also some other key press stuff that you can do. So you can reset the ball by pressing R, and you can pause the game by pressing P. And I'm not gonna. Well, I'll pause the game for a moment. Game's paused. Can't move the paddle at all. The ball's not moving. Press P again to unpause it. I'm not gonna use up my presses of R because I've got it set up that it's kind of strategic so that every time you reset, it deducts a life, and the stages are set up now so that there's an expected number of lives that it takes to complete the stage. And part of the reason for that is that I'm not very good at designing stages, so the ball sometimes just gets stuck in weird spots. And so rather than have the stage designed well enough that that doesn't happen, I've got it set up like this. So you can use your lives as basically a way to yeah, as kind of as a strategic move. You might also see here that I've got obstacles. So in the first version of the game, I don't think I had obstacles in the first version. I might have actually. But these obstacles are not just bricks anymore. There can be anything, and in fact, the bricks can be anything. So they don't just have to be rectangles. They can also be, well, you'll see in the video what other kinds of interesting shapes they can be. But the one fun programming part for me was to actually make it so that the ball bounces fairly realistically off of any surface, even if it's not just a rectangle, which involves a bit more trig, but isn't all that difficult. Let's see what else. So I've also got the stage name at the top of the screen now, and whoop, that wasn't supposed to happen. The stage name is top of the screen. The life counter and the score counter are both at the top of the screen, and yeah, yeah, that's about it. With kind of the things that you'll actually see happening in the game. There's other stuff kind of behind the scenes, so there's a bit more code, as I said, about how the ball bounces, what happens to the ball when it bounces. But that stuff is not. You're not going to really notice that, I don't think. There's also, geez, see, this is where you want to use your resets because I didn't design the game well enough to avoid stuff like that happening. What it really comes down to is like a rounding error, basically, where the ball's estimating what the game's estimating what the bouncing trajectory of the ball should be based on it's an estimate, so it's not perfect. And as a result, sometimes the ball end up bouncing completely sideways, which shouldn't happen if you think about it, since the ball is always starting out with some kind of vertical. Anyway, it could happen, I guess, but very unlikely. Yeah, so here's, the last stage and this stage are kind of good examples of how the obstacles, the quote-unquote bricks now, and obstacles don't have to be rectangles or rectangular, and ball still acts nicely with that. Yeah, so that's pretty much all the features I want to talk about. In the next version, probably the next version of the game that I would like to do, I would like to change the scoring system. So I don't particularly like the scoring system right now. The scoring system is such that each brick, each thing that you can destroy has associated with it a number of points. And so when you destroy the brick, then yeah, you get that number of points. It works fine, but since you have to destroy every brick to advance to the next level, it's not all that interesting. So pretty much the only time that the score would even matter is if you don't finish, which I'm finding this game to be pretty hard despite having made it myself. So it's not unlikely that you wouldn't finish, but what I would like to do is change it so that the scoring system is based on a timer, and each stage would have associated with it a timer. So let's say that the stage might take 3 minutes or something, and your score would just be based on not only what brick you destroy, but on how much time is left on the clock. So if you destroy a really high value brick, then it'll be like a multiplier. So you basically get like the number of seconds left on the clock as your score, along with the multiplier of the brick, and that would be the way of scoring. So there would be a strategy there to not only trying to complete the levels, but actually complete them quickly, and that would provide you a higher score. So that'd be like probably the next thing I'd like to implement. After that, I would like to do some power-ups. So Arkanoid usually has some power-ups for the paddle or the ball. Things like shooting lasers out of the paddle, or making the ball go really fast, or having multiple balls. And I'd like to implement that. It's a little bit more work to do that, just because it involves switching out the paddle and switching the behavior of the paddle and the ball, which it's not all that hard, but it will take some time. So I like to do that after changing the scoring system. And then probably after that, I want to add some sounds to the game. So my very first game, I had a Pong paddle sound, and with that one, yeah, I mean, that was a sound that I recorded using just my mouth. But I would like to do sounds like that for the stages. So like maybe each brick, when it's destroyed, would have a particular sound associated with that destruction, and that'd be pretty cool. And then probably the last major thing, I guess, before I would really call this a complete game, would be to have the bricks, the objects that you destroy, be able to move, and maybe even the obstacles be able to move. I mean, they're all bricks, really. So, at previous level, I had some Koopas sitting on the screen, and they weren't really moving around. But to make the game a lot more interesting, if they actually had some path that they follow, some trajectory, and if they're just moving like left or right or up or down, that's not too hard to implement. But the thing that's really an issue for me is animations. I can't draw at all, and I don't really know much about animations. I don't even know that I have appropriate software to make animations, but that'd probably be the last thing that I'd like to do. That would be, would really just kind of round out the game, make it really interesting. and really open up possibilities for what the levels look like. Yeah, I know I wasn't really considering in all that the levels. So the levels in here are interesting to me, but I'd like to have more than five, and being able to add elements of like power ups and moving bricks and obstacles would be really interesting. So I think if I got to that point, I would consider the game like done. And not to say I wouldn't reuse it for a different version of the game or a different game, but just like I would consider that releasable on its own. So yeah, that's a little bit about what I've been doing with this game and where it is at and where I hope it will go. So I hope if the last version didn't seem too interesting, this one maybe is a bit more so. And you'll go download it and check it out. Download Python and Pygame. There'll be links in the description. Yeah, and make some of your own stages or make some of your own power ups or something. Um, but yeah, until next time, thanks for watching.